Hey, my name is Anisha Patel and I'm obsessed with all things career development. I am a pharmacist turned entrepreneur who's transformed my passions into purpose. I've grown a podcast that has reached thousands of people across the globe. I'm building an online business and I've left my 9-to-5 to chase my dreams. I've walked this path of transformation myself, and now I'm here to share insights, strategies, and stories to help you carve out a career that you love. Career opportunities, personal development, challenges, growth, and building life skills are all things we discuss on this podcast. Be prepared to be inspired and motivated to step outside of your comfort zone. This is the Pharmacist Diaries Podcast.
First and foremost, welcome to the Pharmacist Diaries Podcast, Ashlee. I am super excited to have you with me on today's episode. I'll do a little introduction and let everyone know who you are. You are the founder of RxAshley, which is a strategy and marketing company, but you're also the vice president of market strategy at CE Impact. You graduated from pharmacy school in USC, which is really exciting. Plus, you did your PGY1 and PGY2 residency training in the University of Kentucky. And I'm really excited to hear more about your residency journey because I've been on one here in the UK, and it's always really exciting to have a conversation with someone who's been down a similar pathway. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you. I've been following you on Instagram mostly for, I'd say, a couple of years now.
Oh, really?
And I found your posts really inspirational on my journey, which is really exciting.
Good. Thank you.
But I finally, said to myself, actually, you know what? Reach out. Let's do a podcast episode and hear more about what Ashlee Hayes has been getting up to in her life as a pharmacist and beyond. So here we are.
Here we are. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I guess first and foremost, I always ask why you chose to become a pharmacist in the first place, and then we'll take it from there.
It's a good question. So I have a little bit of I'm sure a lot of your guests say this, like unique findings in pharmacy. I'm a third generation pharmacist. So my grandfather owned a pharmacy. My mom was his pharmacy manager. Through that, met my dad. My dad was a pharmacist. And then I was born, and they're like, which pharmacy school are you going to go to? It wasn't like this, long journey for me to become. I mean, it was a long journey. It was hard work, but it wasn't like a self-exploration per se to becoming a pharmacist. I grew up watching my dad absolutely loving the profession. He had a very non-traditional route, similar to myself. And he just loved his career, loved the profession, gave a lot to his career. And I wanted to be exactly like him. I wanted to enjoy my career, have the opportunity to explore non-traditional routes just similar to him. And so that's kind of how I ended up in pharmacy.
Amazing. My dad's not a pharmacist, neither is my mum, but they owned pharmacies. So,
okay.
Yeah, I was spent a lot of my time as a child within the pharmacy in the retail setting, playing with perfumes and over-the-counter products and using those manual guns for pricing.
It's so funny. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Doing expiry date checking. My dad used me for expiry date checking on weekends.
That's classic. Yeah.
So I totally understand kind of your perspective of being around pharmacy growing up, which is really interesting. When you were in pharmacy school, though, where did your interests lie in terms of what you thought pharmacy was going to be like as a career?
That's a great question. I think my first year of pharmacy school, I actually really struggled figuring out where I fit because I knew that I wanted to dive deep into the therapeutics and the clinical journey, and I wanted to be really good pharmacist, like a foundationally strong, clinically trained pharmacist. However, I always had this lingering operations, business development, strategy, kind of leadership aspirations. So I straddled between those kind of two hats throughout my whole pharmacy school journey. And then that's essentially why I stepped into my PGY1, PGY2 in health system administration residency. And then I also got my master's in healthcare administration alongside my residency. And I just always knew from the beginning that I wanted to go more of the operations business side rather than bedside or patient care. Although I do love taking care of patients, I miss it sometimes. I miss being in the know. I miss patient contact. I miss holding patients' hands. I miss being in the hospital. I miss being just in it. During my experience at UK, at the University of Kentucky, I was really in the trenches with patient care. And I'll tell you, there's no better feeling than walking out of a hospital knowing that you did good today. You really provided care to patients. And that's why we get into it, to help patients. But I knew that with my personal life, with the journey that I want, with the career goals that I wanted, that more operations, business development, marketing strategy, that side of me was more of my strengths. And so that's the area that I've strongly pursued over the past 10 to 15 years now.
That's really interesting. Do you think there's a perception within the society or the community of pharmacy that you should kind of pursue that traditional pathway of a very patient-facing role and be dedicated and committed to patient-facing roles in the US? Because here, especially if you're a pharmacy student, except for industry, that's kind of mainly what the curriculum focuses on, rather than all of the other things that come up that we can do within pharmacy.
For sure. I think it depends who you ask. I believe that whatever you're doing, you just need to do a good job. So whether that's patient care or whether you're working in industry or you're working in marketing or you're a podcaster, I think whatever you're focused on needs to be your focus. So if you're doing patient care, you need to be the best pharmacist that you can absolutely be for that individual patient or that team. But in terms of curriculum, yeah, I mean, the pharmacy school curriculum, I've been outside of school for a while now, so I can't, maybe I'm not the best person to ask because I feel dated. But when I was back in my day, when I was in school, it was very heavily clinical, which is, I think, fair from a pharmacy school perspective. But you're right, there is a huge opportunity for pharmacists to step into what we typically phrase as non-traditional, non-clinical roles. So now where I went to school at the University of Southern California, we're in the melting pot of Los Angeles. So the amount of opportunities that we had to interface with different populations, different patient demographics was extraordinary. So I think, I was really fortunate to have just so many different opportunities passed to me, patient care wise and the non-patient care opportunities. We live very close to headquarters of some of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. So the influx of faculty, professors, exposure to fellowships, exposure to electives. It's probably more than a typical pharmacy school. Mm-hmm. And also our pharmacy school was essentially across the street from one of the largest academic medical centers in the country as well. So I think it's about placement in my experience, but there's just so many routes you can take, which is so exciting.
As a pharmacist, I know firsthand how challenging it can be to maintain our health and well-being whilst caring for others. I am a true believer of making the time to look after my physical, mental, and emotional health, and I love the idea of using natural supplements to support me on this journey. That's why I was so excited to find The Naked Pharmacy. Their products are 100% plant-based and naturally sourced, 100% biodegradable, and it feels really safe to know that they are formulated, tested, and manufactured to the same standard as a pharmaceutical product. However, the most important fact to share is that their CEO and founder, Kevin Levers, is a pharmacist with over 35 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry. I love that as a community, we can support our pharmacy colleague every time that we purchase a product. As a Pharmacist Diaries listener, you get an exclusive 20% discount off all Naked Pharmacy products using the code PD20. Just visit www.thenakedpharmacy.com and treat yourself to something new.
It's so exciting. Even here.
It's overwhelming.
I think that it does become, we're getting to that point now where there is so much variety. I mean, this podcast has 139 episodes now. And I mean, I've interviewed people from all areas of practice that I can think of, and there's still things that I'm missing. There are still people that I need to reach out to that I haven't, interviewed yet, or I haven't, got the exposure of their kind of career journey. And I teach pharmacy students now, and they feel very overwhelmed even when they're quite close to graduation because there's so much available to them. They don't know where to look, what to find, what fits with who they are. And that clarity around what you're going to do with the kind of early stages of your career, for them is quite challenging. It's quite challenging.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think that's gotten probably escalated over that challenge. But I had a very similar experience when I was graduating pharmacy school. It was difficult because you do have to make a choice at some point. But you know what? Every phase in your career, you also have to make choices. So it's like, why not start learning the tools now and build your confidence along the way on how to make more confident, clear decisions for your career?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And I've been talking to a lot of my students about that at the moment because they need to sit down and truly reflect on what their passions are, what brings them joy, what are they interested in, but also what are their skills? What experience have they had where they've got specific skills, and then kind of aligning that to the different opportunities that would fit both of those avenues, as well as building in like your life values.
Yeah,
because a lot of students,
it's so easy. Just do that.
Yeah, just figure it out, guys. But trying to put in they don't even think about life values yet. And also, here, you go to pharmacy school straight from high school, by the way.
Yeah,
so it's very different.
Yeah.
They're so much younger.
Right.
So they become a pharmacist at the age of 21, 22 years old, which is a little bit different to the US, especially when you've got that kind of a couple of years at least in your undergraduate degree. I mean, I studied in Virginia. I went to Virginia Tech, and I did my 4 years of biology and chemistry, but I just truly enjoyed the college experience, and then when I moved back to the UK from the US, was then when I went into pharmacy school, and then I was really serious about kind of joining a, professional journey. But when I was in Virginia, I was just having fun and enjoying myself. I wasn't really thinking too much about the future. I was living in the present moment, which was nice at the time.
That's good.
I know. I'm kind of glad.
That's the American dream.
Live in the moment, guys.
Exactly.
Live in the moment.
I would say, a lot of college students here follow that method, that philosophy.
Yeah. Agreed. I was naive. That was the main thing. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, but it's totally okay. I guess so when you were doing your residencies, you were definitely clinically focused, patient-facing, staying in that kind of hospital environment. What were your thought processes? Because you navigated out of that. What were your thought processes as to why that journey kind of evolved?
There's a lot here. First and foremost, my dad was a chief pharmacy officer at a large academic medical center. So, I had a residency when I was a child, basically. I saw him doing what he did. And so I said, I I really love what he does and I want to do that. So for me, going to pharmacy school, then choosing the path that I did, I've had a little bit different kind of natural organic steps. Like I knew what I wanted to kind of do. Now that has evolved and I'll tell you a little bit about that later. But when it was time for me to graduate and go to residency, I knew that I wanted to do a PGY1, PGY2 with the clinical foundation of becoming really the expert, the medication expert, the go-to pharmacist. So that's why I chose one of the top clinical residency programs in our country, the University of Kentucky. I was the first pharmacy administration resident there. So I think it's been over 10 years now. So they've had several cycle through since I've been there, but I was met with a lot of challenges, being like, what are you? Who are you? Why are you here? Literally, people said that to me. They didn't really know what to do with me because I was a typical PGY1 resident that took call, that did all the requirements of a clinical resident. But my focus was just a little different. Like my focus wasn't critical care, or it wasn't infectious disease, or it wasn't oncology. It was, how do we pay for drugs? How do I manage people? How do we procure and store these specialty medications, which at the time was a brand new phenomenon at the health system. So my focus was just a little different. And I think I went into it knowing that, hey, listen, there's going to be 25 residents here and I'm going to be the only one that is not looking for a clinical subspecialty. And so it was really hard. I knew that going in, but then actually practically doing that, I mean, I almost quit my first year because I really did. In January after my residency, I almost quit because it was hard. The practice itself was challenging me more than I expected. And the preceptors were pushing me more than I anticipated clinically. But at the end of the day, I had really good mentors there, which I attribute a lot of my success to, because they reminded me, like, you're not like everyone here. Like your goals are different. So don't mix the bags. You can leave, but like, what's that going to get you? First of all, where are you going to go? I was like, I don't know where I'm going to go. Second, you're just different. And once the sooner you get to kind of get comfortable with that, the sooner you can build your own success in this program. And I did. And at the end of the second year, I won Resident of the Year. I was able to stay on and create my own position as the Assistant Director of Central Pharmacy Operations. I really grew in those 2 years from a leadership perspective and clinically too. So I kind of always knew that clinical, quote unquote, clinical pharmacy, whatever that is, wasn't going to be my specific area of focus. But I think it was the best challenge that I've had so far in my career.
That's interesting. It is hard because it is quite a competitive environment, and 25 residents.
Yeah, it was so
huge.
Cutthroat. It was terrible.
Huge.
Terrible cutthroat. I mean, not terrible. I don't want to say anything negative. It was terrible because it was just hard. Like the clinical practice is hard. Taking care of these highly acute patients who are stroking out in the middle of the night and you're the only pharmacist responsible for them. I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But it pushed me.
Yeah. Our residency programs here are 3 years. Like you commit to the 3 years of residency. And do the on-calls and night shifts, weekends, all of that.
Yep. I
loved it though.
Yeah, I
thrived.
I can't say that I loved all of it. I thrived towards the end of my second year. My first year, I kind of crawled through. Second year, I think was like I was on, but I tend to be a slow learner, anyways. So.
No, that's interesting. I love it. And then once you kind of got into that new role, what was that new role like for you? Did you love it when you were in it and you were out of the residency and you felt like, okay, this is my first like job out of residency? How did it feel for you?
I felt very safe because I had worked with these people for 2 years and they knew me very well by that point. I felt very supported. I felt like very aligned with my career goals and where I wanted to go in the future. I think for me, it was more, how do I combine my personal life with my professional life? And that's where my career has gotten very creative and very non-traditional. I don't think a lot of people probably talk about this, maybe not on your podcast, but my husband's career had us moving constantly. So just until like literally 6 months ago, did we really land and build roots in the area that we are right now. So for me, I mean, I would have stayed at that hospital for probably 10 years and grown to chief pharmacy officer. I don't know. I can't say that for guarantee, but I would have loved to. The hospital is thriving. It's doing so well. And I have a lot of friends still there. And so, yeah, I probably would have stayed there. But my personal life, my husband, he has a big career that's required us to move several times. He has a big career aspirations himself. And so how do you make two careers under one roof work? It's a challenge. And that's
it's a challenge,
kind of,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a challenge. And it's also something that I was never taught in pharmacy school. I was like, wait, now I have to worry about this? So
like, how does life mix in with
life is
work?
so annoying. It gets in the way. But yeah.
No, it's tough.
Yeah. So that's kind of what's led me down this very non-traditional path.
So at that point, you were still living in Kentucky when you met your husband?
Mm-hmm. We met in university. So when I was, he was, yeah, our story is we've been together for over 15 years now. So I was a fourth year in undergrad. So here in the States, it's university after high school. And I was in my fourth year of my undergraduate studies, and he was in his first semester of graduate school. And I got accepted to USC 3 weeks after we met, and then we decided to stay together, and we did long distance for 4 years and then got married.
Our stories are so strangely aligned. It's really weird, actually. I met my husband 2011 now. Yeah, so 13 years. He was living in Dubai. So we did long distance for 3 years during my residency.
Oh yeah, that's.
And then I had to make the
story.
decision. Yeah, I had to make that decision whether or not I'm going to move or stay. And obviously,
for a boy.
For a boy. Yeah. I went on the adventure. I was winging it. I went on the adventure and I enjoyed the journey. And I have become a very different person. And all good things. Nothing negative has come out of that in any way, shape, or form. But I had to leave a hospital pathway that I was on. Once you do the residency, obviously you find your subspecialty. I was on that journey, and I arrived in Dubai, and it took me months and months and months to find myself a job, even with those qualifications.
I was listening to one of your podcasts, and I felt it for you. I get it.
So it's a tough journey making changes for your partner, but it's part and parcel of marriage, and you make sacrifices at different times. So after 5 years of living in the UAE, I genuinely felt like I wanted to come back to the UK because I wasn't progressing because I wanted to be a very clinical pharmacist working in a hospital and being patient facing. Like, that was my dream. And I enjoyed lots of things outside of that. But every time I was in a non-patient facing role, I kept craving that patient interaction. And I wasn't necessarily experiencing the full scope of what pharmacy had to offer in the UAE, because when you look at clinical pharmacy, they are still a few years behind the UK, the US, and other countries, and they're moving in the right direction, but it's still different to home. And at that point in my career, I felt like I was probably comparing myself to other people that I was on my journey with, right? You go on a residency and they become like your really good friends, and they're all kind of going into those subspecialties, and I felt like I was missing out. I truly understand now that I don't need to compare myself to other people and worry about what's happening around me and to focus on me. But that was, again, like a journey I had to learn along the way, and that it was okay to be different. It was okay to try different things. It was okay to step out of a patient-facing role, learn a whole bunch of incredible skills that you would never get exposed to necessarily in a hospital, and then take those skills back into a patient-facing role, which worked to my advantage. Especially for me, it was leadership and education and training. Those are the two like main things, and project management. Three huge things that have worked to my advantage in roles that I've kind of had recently in the last 5 years. But we moved home for me. And he never wanted to come home. But, you know, he was like, I'm never returning to the UK. Like, I'm done with being in London. Like, I want, you know, I don't know if you know, the weather here is like terrible. The winters are like long. It's very rainy and grey, and you're never guaranteed a summer. And weather does play like a massive impact on like your mental health here as well. Like, 'cause it's so dark and gloomy. So living in the UAE, it's hot all year round, loads of sun, you can swim, be at the beach, you can really enjoy like your quality of life alongside working. But yeah, marriage brings sacrifices to usually one partner at some point, right? So I felt like I had made the sacrifice coming out to the UAE, though I loved it. But I was ready to come home and make some changes towards my career journey. And this podcast has been born from that change, which is amazing. And I'm super happy about that. And marriage is really hard. Like, again, things that you don't necessarily learn, right? In your 20s and maybe even early 30s, if you're not married yet. You just kind of wing it and see what happens. And you make compromises, shifts in terms of your career journey. Children come into play, and you don't know what type of mother you're going to be or how you're going to feel when you become a parent. Like, that was a big blow in the face when I became a parent for the first time. I felt, I wasn't necessarily lost, but I felt like I had my child fit into my work life. And I'm only now 6 years later flipping that script and saying, hey, Anisha, this is not how it's meant to be. You know, you got to figure it out. You got to make the switch, which is why I resigned from my position as well in November, a job that I genuinely loved. And I really thrived in that position, but it just wasn't working for my home life. And yeah, let me know if any of this is resonating with you, and if you've been through a similar journey becoming a mom and a wife.
Yes and yes and yes. You know, I think it's kind of so many different things to take into consideration here. I had my first daughter when we were still in Kentucky, and I went through, right when I got back from maternity leave, this was when I had transitioned out of the health system and started working for a startup. I had been working for them for 18 months, maybe 2 years, and my position was eliminated right after my 6 weeks of maternity leave. And I was the breadwinner. I carried all of the bills. I mean, we were married, but my husband wasn't in his career yet. So that was probably the biggest wake up call for me, was when I had a 6-week-old and no job. And it was hard. So I think life happens to everyone differently at different paces. And my biggest learning curve from that experience becoming a mom was, how do I always show my value in a workplace, so next time this happens, that I'm not the one to get cut. Now, that's not always controllable. I recognize that there was a merger. It wasn't even a personal thing. It was nothing to do with me per se. It was just the business merged and they had to get rid of some units, and I was just part of that cut. So, but however, I realized at that point, like, how do I continuously show my value in the marketplace so that I, for lack of better terms, have more control over my career? Because I had very little control over anything else. We were moving. My husband had just finished his residency, so my husband's a surgeon. And his career really dominated our schedule, still does. And I think I always kind of wanted to have some type of control over my life. I was a new mom. My husband's schedule was challenging. We were away from family. So I kind of threw myself into learning about value proposition work, and how do you always show your value at work, and how do you have a personal life and do the kid thing and also still feel fulfilled while at work or while your professional journey is at place. And so that's been 7 years, and it has been a journey, and I've learned a lot. I am a completely different person than I was when I had Madeline, my oldest daughter, for better. And I think she's been such a value add to my life because she's forced me, for lack of better terms, forcing is not the right word. Being a parent forces you to really get clear with your priorities. And I don't have a lot of time. So the time I do have, I need to make sure I'm efficient at what I do. And I think being a parent, in my opinion, parents are some of the best employees because they don't have a lot of time. So the time that they do have, it better be in a value add way for employment or for their employers, because they have a responsibility. They have kids to take care of. So that's kind of been my journey since 2016. And that's obviously where RxAshley started. That's where I've created a lot of new relationships. I've traveled all over the world outside of COVID, giving keynote speaking engagements. I've started my blog. I've helped over 10,000 clients now. So that's really where that passion stemmed from. And I guess, a lot of that is because I transitioned into becoming a parent.
That is so cool. I love this story. This is so good. I love this because you know what? When you become, and it's so unexpected, right?
Yeah.
It's so unexpected because when you become a parent, all sorts of new things come to light and they come to the forefront of your brain because your priorities are completely different. The responsibility that you have over this human. And now I feel I have this, how do I explain myself? Now I have this feeling that I have to constantly lead by example.
I know.
So,
yeah, I know.
It's a good thing, though. It's a great thing.
And I love a great thing.
It guides me. It guides me. It keeps me on the right route. And, even last week I went to go speak to students at a pharmacy school. And I told them that, hey, my kid's on, school holidays at the moment, and I'm going to bring her along. She came with me. She helped hand out some worksheets and stuff and Post-it notes because I was doing a little workshop as well. But I mean, when she was loving it, she was loving seeing me just filled with passion and joy and just enjoying being around students and helping other people on their journey. She loved how engaged the students were. She brought her camera with her so she could take photographs and keep memories and stuff, which was just adorable. And it was nice to role model the way and show her what a pharmacist is capable of and what her mum's capable of. Because I talk a lot about what I do for my work. She knows that we have this podcast. She spends a lot of time on this microphone talking all sorts of nonsense, which is lovely. But, she got to see me at work. She's always asking me, what do you do when you're at work? What is it like to be a pharmacist in a hospital? What exactly do you do to help children? So she knows I work at a university and I have pharmacy students. So she's always very curious. So I said to her, let's do it. Come with me. Come for the day. It was, 3 hours there, 3 hours back. And we had a lot of fun on the car journey. We did a road trip, loads of snacks, obviously. We had a great day together. And if I was in a full-time role right now, there's no way I would have been able to have that opportunity, which is one of the perks of this entrepreneurial journey, is that, hey, I can do things that are different and enjoy spending time with my family and prioritizing the fact that I have to do childcare, but let her enjoy the journey with me. But yeah, parenting has changed me so much. My priorities have completely changed who I am. I'm a very different person to who I was. My thought processes, my confidence in the world, my ability to problem solve or think outside the box to get things done. Parenting has taught me so much that I bring to work every day, which is great. And I love that. But parenting is so hard at the same time. We both have children who are under 2. Is your daughter 2 yet? Has she turned 2 yet?
Charlotte is turning 2 in end of next month. So she's
okay, cool. Yeah,
she's almost so. 2.
Yeah,
almost 2.
Kai is turning 2 in July, and I remember when you had her through social media, and I remember messaging you because I've seen you going on so many adventures in terms of travel and doing speaking events, and I think back then you might have been pumping.
Oh my gosh.
You were pumping in different places, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I love this because I'm on the same journey. And that was also like you're like a girl boss, you know, and you're bossing it at work, bossing it at home. And so, you know, those things resonated with me as well through social media, which was nice to see.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. Yeah, social media is funny. I've backed off social media for the past couple of years because it's kind of like when I first started in 2016, I was all over the place with my social media. But then, I don't know, it started to get weird that people knew all the stuff about me. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do this very selectively.
Yeah, fair enough. Actually, let me ask you about that. When it comes to being an entrepreneur, do you feel like you're trapped by the social media bandwagon where you feel like you have to be on social media all the time to, you know, drive your business forward?
Well, that's a good question. Because of the skills I've gained from being an entrepreneur the past, it's been like 8 years now, for 7 years. I've learned my number one takeaway. Well, there's a lot of takeaways, so I can't just say this, but maybe my top 5 is you have to be an expert marketer in order to grow a business. You can't grow your business without marketing. I mean, I guess you can. There's these anomalies, right? These people who are hiding behind screens and don't have billboards and don't have PR and don't have any of this, but still their business grows organically. But in my experience and working with other entrepreneurs, other companies, you have to market yourself as an expert and build that trust and why people should listen to you. So I've personally speaking, social media to me is not intimidating. It's not scary. It's just, this is what you have to do. If you want to help people, if you want to grow, if you want to create the impact that you say you want, if you have goals, you have to put it out there into the universe as to why people should trust you. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. I have learned throughout my experience, when I don't market myself, when I'm not on stage, when I'm not on podcasts, when I'm not doing anything, my business is like status quo, which sometimes I love. Like it's kind of organic. It's through referrals, friends, networks. I will work with one person, they'll share it with their friend of a friend, and it kind of grows that way, which in the season of my entrepreneurship experience over 7 years really works for me. But when there's times when I want to ramp up, when I have a program that I'm working on, when I want to grow, when I want to make more money, I have to market myself. I have to put myself out there. And social media is one of the outlets where it has worked for me. And I have struggled with that, but it does. Now, I think I struggle with social media because I like privacy. I don't like people knowing about my life, but like I'm normal, a person just like you, just like everyone else who has things come up. And so I think that's relatable. And that's why a lot of people, my clients do come to me, is because I am relatable. But at the same time, it's like, well, come to me because I'm good at what I do, not because I'm relatable. But it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it's a tough journey. I mean, the podcast for me has grown organically from the early days. And yes, I share quite a bit, or I have been sharing a lot on social media, especially if the podcast gets released. There's a few reels and posts that come out alongside that, and that's every week. I love sharing the behind the scenes. A lot of people are always interested in what happens behind the scenes with the podcast. But now I'm building a brand, and Pharmacist Diaries is not just a podcast, and it's growing into other avenues, and trying to figure out what those avenues are and how to best serve my community. I'm putting out lots of different content as trial and error to see what people like, what people resonate with. But over the last 3 to 4 months, I just feel like I'm in this social media trap, that I'm constantly feeling like I need to be on there to understand more about my audience, because you're not able to necessarily get face-to-face with the people that you want to reach out to. It's kind of a little bit easier to do it through social media. But I have been also going to pharmacy schools and doing talks, and the feedback that I get from speaking events has been like that light bulb moment, that actually focus on that. Because A, it brings me so much more joy. It brings like a lot of people together, and that face-to-face element is so different to the online space. And I've realized how much more I prefer that. So it was only like last week that I said, actually, I feel like I'm spending 75% of my time making content online, which people aren't necessarily engaging with. But I go to one pharmacy school and there's like 150 students, and there's like a queue of people who want to speak to me at the end of the talk. And then I'm like, boom, like this is the way forward. Like I need to switch my strategy as to how I raise awareness of my brand, how I understand more about who my avatar is and what their problems are, what are their challenges that they're facing, how can I serve them, how can I help them. So things are kind of shifting for me in terms of the brand, which is really exciting. And I was just keen to know what you think about social media, because I feel like as entrepreneurs, we feel like we need to be there all the time. At one point, I had like 3 months of content, like ready and good to go up front, you know? But it's really hard to maintain that. It's really difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, that comes back to focus. What are you focused on? Because most entrepreneurs are not focused. I think they're like bunnies. You know, we see pot of gold, we hop 5 steps in one direction, and then there's another pot of gold, and we hop 10 steps in the left, and then you see another pot of gold, and you take 20 steps to the right, and then we lose sight. We lose sight of what's the most important thing here. Keep focused. The number one thing should be your number one thing, and that's probably a lot of what I've learned in my entrepreneurial journey as well. But yeah, I mean, majority, if not all, of my content is posted well before it goes live. I have a system in place to manage that now. I have a team that I can count on when I need to get content up. But I also think it's just you have to just journey it. Like you have to go through it and figure out. I've spoken at probably 40 pharmacy schools, given keynote speaking engagements at all the large pharmacy organizations here in the States. It would be fun to do something international. Oh, I've spoken Thailand before. But because of COVID, I mean, we were closed down for so many years. But I think that's a great way to kind of get going and just figure out what you like to talk about. And then that'll also evolve once you evolve, once your passions change and what your goals change. And I think the hardest part is just going.
Yeah.
Not stopping. I think most people just quit.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you on that. And only recently, because I'm navigating through all of this and a lot of the trial and errors happening at the moment. And sometimes I put so much love and energy and effort into something, and I truly believe that my community is going to love it. And they don't. And I'm like, oh man, how did that happen to me? How did that happen to me? But it's such a good learning opportunity, as hard as it is. When you're in the moment, of course, you're like, oh, how is this happening? But I'm working on finding ways through it, and I'm kind of enjoying that process at the same time. Tell me a little bit more about RxAshley in terms of the early days of building a brand, and you know, what were things that worked for you, as well as what challenges did you face as an entrepreneur that you've overcome with time? Because it's been 8 years now.
That's a good question. You know, when I first got started, I had no intention on being an entrepreneur. That wasn't necessarily the goal. My goal was to learn I'd always had this natural knack for friends and family to reach out to me for career advice. And so one time after I got laid off, I went out to coffee because I was in a deep, deep depression of figuring out what I was going to do next. My friend took me and the baby out to coffee. And she's like, why don't you help people get jobs like while you're navigating this? And I just started laughing. I was like, okay, that's weird because I'm trying to get a job. And she's like, well, I always turn to you for job advice. So why don't you help other people? And I was annoyed that she even gave me that feedback because I was like, how is that helpful? But then I went home and I just randomly posted on LinkedIn one time. I was like, listen, if you need help reviewing your resume or CV, let me know. And over 6 months, I reviewed over 10,000 CVs and resumes, and I started blogging about it. And that's where this all happened. I just started a blog and my mom read it, I think. And that was it to begin with.
Isn't that always the way, though?
My mom was like, you're doing great. And then I started, that's kind of the roots. I didn't really think I was going to be an entrepreneur. I don't think I'm really good fit to be an entrepreneur at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't have an end goal in mind other than I just wanted to help people. And I was on this self-exploration journey. I again, just had a brand new baby. We moved from Kentucky to Sacramento, California. My husband started his fellowship and we were only going to be there for less than a year. So what kind of job was I going to get, outside of being remote, with a new baby, with only being there less than a year? So I just took my severance that I got and we sold our house. So we had money for rent and I breastfed. So I didn't I just couldn't I couldn't afford to give her any, formula. So I was like, how can I save as little as possible and just keep figuring it out? And my goal was by the end of that fellowship year for my husband that I would have something lined up. And then, again, more life happened. But that whole blogging, reviewing people's resumes for free, CVs for free, writing people's cover letters ultimately led me to interview prepping people and build my network. I grew my LinkedIn presence. That's really where majority of my business has stemmed from. Instagram has been super fun for me, connect with people like you and some other clients. But LinkedIn really drove my business. And it's grown some butterfly wings since then.
Grown some butterfly wings is an understatement, Ashlee.
I don't know what to say. Yeah.
You're like a unicorn right now. You're like a unicorn fairy who has
oh my gosh, I need
spread her wings.
I'm not one. I need a unicorn fairy to put magic pixie dust on my plate and say this is it for you. Next step. Here you go.
No, because I see your journey from the outside, whether it's through social media or looking at your website, and also the type of content that you put out. And it's inspirational for me. And you're so far ahead in the entrepreneurial journey, but you've also found that area of expertise that you genuinely love and that you're really good at. You're utilizing all these skills that you've learned from your pharmacy journey, and you're building your kind of work life around your home life. And it's where I want to be at. So a lot of things resonate with me, and it's very inspirational to see someone who's found their own purpose, and it's become as big as you've made your career. I mean, when you look at the statistics and the thousands of people that you've helped, I mean, it's incredible. You're a unicorn fairy.
Yeah. Could I? That's great. I'm going to tell my husband that. He's going to laugh when he gets home. I think it's about staying in your own lane. There's a lot of things that I'm not good at too. So I just want to be mindful of that. Through trial and error, hasn't resonated with me. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't work for my life. It isn't a good fit for a variety of reasons. But the interview prep is something that I do essentially almost every day, and it works. It works for me. It works for my clients. And it's kind of weird. Just this morning, I was at the gym and this woman's like, do you really interview prep people every day? I was like, it's kind of what I do. Yeah. I mean, again, I have a job that I work I'm working marketing. But this season of my life, like, I just love a little bit of that. Like, I like focusing on a job. I also love helping people. The entrepreneurial journey for me has been beautiful, wonderful. I've evolved. I've challenged myself. I've pushed myself, but I didn't know if is that it? Is that what we're working for? I think it's still all questions that I still have too.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's interesting.
I mean, I'm in the game. I don't have a game. I'm in it. It's not like this is the end game. I'm talking outside of the game. I'm in the game. So, I mean, I might be a couple years ahead in the entrepreneurial journey than anyone listening or yourself, but I don't consider myself like winning.
The top of your game.
I consider myself just learning and evolving and figuring out what week by week basis, what's working, what's not, and making changes from there.
It's a really good thing to discuss because I have a lot of students who are excited about having pharmacy as their foundation to build wealth and earn money and earn a living, but actually they want to do something else alongside it. Something innovative, something digital, something around social media, something around YouTube and content creation. All of that is starting to come, out of the weeds right now for pharmacy students. It's super exciting, but for them it's quite overwhelming as well to not know what it feels like to have a kind of startup or be an entrepreneur or start from scratch. And they always ask for advice as to kind of where to start. And so your story is really wonderful because you were put into a position where you had to build something from the ground up, and you did it so organically and just trial and error and just seeing what happened. Like you said, you just helped people for free, provided value online, started posting on LinkedIn, creating a blog, and one thing led to another. And again, it was trial and error and seeing what worked and what resonated with people and giving them more of what they wanted.
Yeah. And I think, my best friend taking me out to coffee, it was, she pointed something out in me that I didn't know I had. And she's like, you're really good at this. I was like, I am? Like, you're crazy. Okay, that's cute. She's my childhood best friend. So sometimes people who know you the best can give you really good insight as to some of your strengths. Now, sometimes those people can also be your biggest barriers because they'll give you unwanted feedback. That's happened to me multiple times, like questioning you. That could lead to imposter syndrome. That could make you feel like you don't know what the heck you're doing. And you know what? It's okay. No one knows what they're doing, really. Actually, some people, I kind of hate that. So I know I'm pivoting a little bit here, but you know what you're doing the more you do it. No one knows how the result is going to look, but without kind of fumbling. So some people actually know the path that they want to go down, and that's great. But a lot of people just keep trying. And I think a lot of people just give up. And so that's where I've just not given up. I think that's one of the best and worst qualities of myself is just not giving up. But also knowing when to pivot, I think is really important. But getting back to Sarah, my friend, telling me like, you're really good at helping people use their words and advocate for themselves and inspire people. And I was like, this is so weird. I never thought of myself as that person, especially when I was low myself, feeling low. And so it just took her saying like, you're really good at this and you should pursue this. And I was like, all right, let's see where this goes. And that's kind of where it's led me. Now I have a completely other friend who's like an amazing baker, and she's just incredible baker, like the best cookies I could ever ask for. And I'm always like, when are you going to start charging me for these cookies? Because they're so good. And she just laughs. And she was like, you're crazy. But I think you also have to know within yourself, like, is this a hobby Is this something that like I just want to pursue because it's a passion and it's fun for me and it's an outlet and I don't really want to make money from here. Like that's not my end goal. It's the goal here is to be creative. Or is this something that I can like turn into a business? And I think a lot of people get lost in that too. I think you have to know like once you hit a certain point, like what is this doing in my life, especially with the time constraint, especially being a parent, especially being in a marriage, you have a lot of things going on. If you work full time, whatever, we're all short for time. But I think eventually you have to figure out like where does this serve in my life? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in that too.
Yeah, no. I mean, for me, the podcast started as a fun passion project. I wanted to help my students. I genuinely wanted to help them learn more about what pharmacy had to offer because their eyes only saw retail, hospital, or industry. And this is only 3.5 years ago. And I was like, well, pharmacy has so much more to offer you. And, you know, what can I do to educate them and inspire them? And how can I motivate them to look outside of these traditional pathways to help them excel in different skills or different passions or different things that they're interested in, whether it's IT, finance, the digital side of pharmacy, leadership. I mean, the list goes on, right? And I did it for fun, but I also did it during COVID to connect with people. I really wanted to be able to continue like having connections with people. And I just thought, let's give it a go and see what happens. And here we are, like 3.5 years later, you know, 139 episodes, 50,000 downloads, and 125 countries tuning in. I mean, it's cool.
That's a lot of people I didn't realize, and now I'm nervous.
No, don't be. This is the joy of winging it conversations on the Pharmacist Diaries podcast. I mean, you know, we've talked about a lot of different things, and it's not like a very traditional interview style. I like to enjoy these conversations, but my audience like the conversations. They can find very specific, like question and answer type podcasts out there. But I think they enjoy the relaxed format, which is great. And I know that we've already spent over an hour talking. It doesn't feel like that, but we have. What is kind of going on in your mind as to what's next for Ashlee and RxAshley? What are your kind of thought processes at the moment in that entrepreneurial journey?
I kind of love the pace I'm going right now. I've done a lot of mastermind groups. I've done a lot of, I've done a lot of online courses. I have 3 online courses right now. I have 6,000 students enrolled in those. I kind of like this pace of focusing on my interview prep clients, and that's been just a sweet spot for me. I have big aspirations, but I have other focus points right now. And it's taken me a lot of learning and unlearning on how to just say, like, I'm pretty happy with where things are at right now. I'm not in this like huge accelerator phase of the business. I'm in a help as many as people as I can get, as I have time for, get the jobs that they deserve, get the promotions that they deserve. And quite frankly, I have a ton of reoccurring clients. So that's been so rewarding for me. Like 3 years ago, I'll interview prep someone and they come to me and they're like, okay, I'm ready for something new, something more challenging, growth, promotion, career ladder. And it's fun for me to have those relationships with them because I get to know them so well. And I like to go deeper, I prefer to go deeper on the relationship scale than just wider. So that's been fun for me. But
this is really nice because you have a community. So now it's all about nurturing the community that you do have. And entrepreneurship isn't always about growth and getting bigger and, like you said, going wider, right? It's actually nice that you can deep dive. And similar to when you were working as a pharmacist and you were working with patient care and you build that relationship with the patient, you're doing a similar thing, but you're just not doing it in patient care. You're doing it with, like, from a human resources point of view. You're doing it from the point of view of helping people to to grow and change and do big things in their lives. And that's a transferable skill, which is really exciting. And I love your story is really interesting. And it's really nice to see that pharmacy does open up opportunities outside of pharmacy, which are amazing in so many ways. You are probably using a lot of your pharmacy skills, not like the clinical context, but the actual skills that we gain working as a pharmacist in your current role. I find that all the time. There's a lot of overlap, and it's really interesting to see that.
Yeah, and I think we have to think about what is your purpose in pharmacy? Where do you see that you provide the most value? And how do you make that work for yourself? I mean, that's kind of how I see myself right now. I'm not working with patients, but my clients all do. So if I can help them, then indirectly I'm helping patients. My husband's also a surgeon who sees multiple patients. I mean, he saw 60 patients in clinic last week. And I was like, all right, at least I'm supporting Chris. And then he can support those patients, in different capacities. So I think you have to feel what is aligned for your value and how you define success on your own.
Oh, yeah, I love that. And that's true, Success to everyone is completely different. And I'm on that journey, like I said, like trying to stop comparing yourselves to other people and looking within.
Well,
really,
it's not even
truly
the same playing field. Yeah, I mean, you can't. It's like comparing apples to oranges. Like, I mean, some people have generational wealth. I don't have any of that. So, it's just me and Chris, me and my husband building. So I can't compare my success or my story to someone else who has an inheritance, because that doesn't work for us. That's good. That's great. And everyone arrives to, again, financial success or personal success or professional success differently, but I can't compare myself to someone who has a different journey than me. That's not fair to myself. That's not even like the same playing field. Now, there's different ways to measure success. So there's emotional success, there's so there's so much to that, but that's just an example. I mean, that's one example to talk about how not to compare yourself to someone, because that's just irrational.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But you can always fall into that trap, can't you?
It's dangerous.
Yeah, it's dangerous. But you have to remind yourself and manifest out of that journey and remind yourself that, hey, I'm on my own journey and my own journey is the most important one here. And I've got to value that so that I can make the right moves and transition in the right way and not worry about what other people are doing. But, society makes that a little bit challenging at times.
And social media is very challenging. So I think it's important who you follow on social media, who you surround yourself with in person, who you turn to for advice, who you trust. That is key aspects of that, I think, health in your mental health at the very least.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that. Where can my listeners find you? I am going to add everything onto the show notes, but I might as well end our conversation with you letting us know the best place for people to find where you're at.
I think LinkedIn and social and Instagram, and my email address is on my website. So I think that's the best place. And I look forward to hearing from people. I know that a lot of students reach out to me. So
amazing. And the fact that you've hinted that you don't mind international opportunities, I will keep you in the loop. I'll keep you in the loop if anything comes up.
I'll be in Paris in 2 weeks, not for work, but I mean, anytime I can step into across the sea, count me in.
All right. Don't think I'm going to forget that, because it would be amazing to be able to cross paths in some way. And I'm very grateful for your time today and your energy and just your honesty as well. A lot of this conversation has been really honest about your journey, the ups and downs, and entrepreneurship and motherhood as well. Like we always talk about that on this podcast, because there are a lot of mums who are doing really, really well in the pharmacy space. And if I can showcase that, I'm going to do it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for the platform. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we will catch up sometime soon, but I really appreciate you coming onto the podcast today. And for anyone who's listening to the episode, Ashlee's website, LinkedIn, Instagram will all be in the show notes below, so check her out.